Okay, we are live. Are we ready?
We are live, yes.
Bringing it to order. All right. Before we do roll call, I just wanted to mention that along with the agenda, did you give the council this as well?
Yes,
Okay.
everybody has.
Debbie worked on this for us and I really, really like it. It's a welcome and kind of a how-to for most of the people who are attending on kind of how our process works and when you can make comments, and when you can jump in with, questions, okay? So take a look at it. I think it's a really great role document. Let's do roll call, Debbie.
Vicky Clues,
Here.
Patty Thayer, here. Tony Goodwin,
Here.
Yvonne Green, here. Spencer Scott,
Here.
Betsy Van Dyke, here. Ronnie is absent. Carrie Hernandez, here. And Nick Thayer.
Here.
Okay. Before we get into the approval of the agenda, I wanted to mention one thing that I'd like to change, and I did it last time too. It's just the order of things. Supervisor Hopkins is going to jump on as, I guess by Zoom?
Yes,
Debbie?
yes,
Okay.
she's here.
She just cannot give us a whole lot of time. She has a conflict. So I'd like to move the county update, which she'll give us, up to number 4 instead of number 7. And I think I need a motion to do that. Is that right? Can somebody please move so? If you agree?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Vote?
And then the vote.
Yeah,
For approving the motion.
yeah, just by eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody approve?
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody know? Good. So we will move into, were there any other changes to the agenda that we need to make? No. Right. Any conflict of interest with the topic for our meeting tonight? From council members? No. Okay. Supervisor Hopkins, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. So I'll provide an update and then happy to answer any questions from MAC reps or members of the public after that. Wanted to give a mention about prescribed burns. One was actually scheduled yesterday, Wednesday, March 11th. The next is scheduled for Wednesday, March 18th. This is all hands ecology, 2 small prescribed burns on private properties in Guerneville and Monterey, total of about 8 acres to be burned. And these burns can cause visible smoke and traffic impacts in the area. Just wanted to explain that the burns are part of ecosystem stewardship, wildfire fuel reduction efforts, and the operations are managed by trained crews and supported by local agencies. If you haven't already, which I'm guessing most everyone has, download Watch Duty because that's a great place to track all of the prescribed fire happening in our area. Definitely the first place that I go to whenever I see smoke. Che had an opportunity to meet with a new CHP commander for our area earlier this week. And it sounds like he is absolutely fantastic and really committed to a collaborative working relationship with the county. So as we move into the summer season, or even what feels like the summer in spring, and start to see increased tourist activity, more people on our roads, CHP is going to be placing an emphasis on maintaining safe and accessible roadways in those areas. So their primary focus is going to be increasing patrol presence and ensuring that officers are briefed on concerns related to illegal parking and roadway access. So that is always top of mind for us, making sure that we're actually enforcing and that we don't create situations where emergency vehicles can't get out or folks are parking in people's driveway or they're just parking in areas that are too narrow and cause issues for the community. So also want to acknowledge that the Caltrans repairs along Highway 116, love working with Caltrans, has been shifting some traffic onto Moscow Road. And so we're seeing a lot of concerns from residents about higher speeds and unfamiliar drivers on a narrow roadway. So the county is installing delineators, added signage, a refreshed stop bar, and flashing beacons to try to address these concerns. And we also coordinated with CHP about increasing enforcement in this area to try to help slow the traffic down. So public infrastructure is going to be monitoring this, making adjustments as needed. And we are hoping that regular community updates will continue during construction from the Caltrans side of things, but we're at least committed to regular community updates on our side of things with public infrastructure. Couple good things coming up at the Board of Supervisors calendar. On March 24th, we're having a neighborhood parks workshop at the Board of Supervisors. Really one of the inspirations for this workshop is Jackie Brazil from Forestville, who has been working so hard on the Forestville skate spot for as long as I've been in office, and she is not giving up, which I love. But we are basically at the point where I really believe we need to change the bureaucratic processes to make this more feasible and possible. And so in a way, she's kind of the poster child for this, but it's actually going to have, broad implications throughout the lower Russian River. And, we've been working on things like the Guerneville Park, right? There's also interest, in Occidental and other communities and little parklets. And we just always struggle with who's going to take charge of it? How is it going to be maintained? How is trash going to be collected? All of these questions. And so if you have, passions, concerns, questions about community parks, please do attend that neighborhood parks workshop on March 24th at the Board of Supervisors. Another fun one, this is a birthday present to me, April 14th, general plan workshop at the Board of Supervisors. So we will be talking about things like the noise policy. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, I know that there was a hit and run of a pedestrian on River Road. I was told that possibly that resident might actually be present at the MAC meeting today. Whether or not they are there, I wanted to bring up that we have been working on a lower Russian River trail, which would create a bike and pedestrian path that would make things a lot safer for residents. And so, if there's any opportunity to sort of channel advocacy towards that, the April 14th meeting might be a good place to do that, or even honestly, the March 24th neighborhood parks workshop, because linear trails are linear parks. So I did just want to share that. And bike and pedestrian safety is a huge challenge throughout unincorporated Sonoma County. Folks go way too fast on rural roads. They aren't paying attention, to cyclists and pedestrians. And so if anyone has any, ideas, that's one of the reasons that we're kind of leaning in on Moscow. We got a lot of folks who live there who enjoy, walking in that area, just trying to do a little bit of traffic calming and try to keep things safe out there. So I think those are all of my updates. I'm happy to answer any questions about that or anything else county related. And thanks for your flexibility on the timing, Chair. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Any questions or comments from the council? Okay. Any comments, questions from our audience, either in house or online?
What time is the 24th meeting?
The time on the 24th, Linda, is it 9 a.m.?
No, unfortunately, we are being told that it's pretty much the last item of the day. And there are so the afternoon calendar doesn't start till 1:30. It starts, with gold resolutions at 1:30. And we're being told there are 2 permit Sonoma items, including a controversial cannabis application. That are going to happen before the parks workshop. So I was going to try to see if there was any flexibility when I meet with the CEO on Monday to try to get a time certain for that, because I think it's of interest to a lot of community members. But right now there's no time certain. And although the agenda hasn't published yet, the draft agenda shows it at the end of the day, which is a bummer. So we'll try to work on that. And otherwise, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, it's going to be hard. You could come and then wait for an hour, or I don't know. I get frustrated because I don't want folks to miss it, but I don't want people to waste their time in chambers either.
Gotcha. Any other comments, questions?
We have a
Anything else?
hand raised online.
Okay,
Jill?
Tracy.
Please unmute to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Jill, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll be brief. You mentioned trash in the parks, and that made me think of trash that's not in the parks. And I know this has been an ongoing issue. There is a dumpster at the river park, and people are using it for furniture, etc. We have ravines with washing machines and dryers and sofas and all sorts of things that just get pushed over the edge and can't really retrieve them. So is there any way to have a sort of public free drop off or a public program to let people know what trash fees are and how they can dispose of things properly?
Yeah, and so we do have a JPA in Sonoma County, the Waste Zero sort of JPA that Rebecca Hermosillo, the current chair of the Board of Supervisors, is the liaison to. I can definitely reach out to them. I do feel like there's definitely a need for increased education about this and also opportunities. I know that there are, hazardous waste free disposals, right? And they try to rotate that around the community. And when they're in West County, we try to get the word out, but we can definitely follow up with them. The other thing is that I believe that we have, we received an application, or maybe we're in conversations. There's been suggestions about installing a security camera at that site to try to deter that sort of behavior, because it's a good location for a dumpster in terms of collecting what it's supposed to be collecting. But when it becomes kind of abused and folks are just dumping all of their household debris or mattresses in it, it's obviously a huge problem. We don't want it to be an attractive nuisance. So just know that those kind of conversations are happening about what we can do to create a deterrent system for that location in general. But thank you very much for raising that issue. And we'll follow up on the education and the free drives. And then just know that we're also tracking that issue really closely. I've seen some really ugly pictures on social media of that site recently.
Thank you, Jill. Anybody else online? Tracy?
No other hands raised online.
Okay, great. Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so let's move into consent agenda. So looking at, sorry, I thought you were aiming that at me. What did I do? Okay, so we've got the draft minutes from the January, or our last meeting, January 8th. I should say 2026.
It should, did I?
We're all still hanging on to 2025.
Yes.
So other than that change, were there any changes before we?
There's two things on the consent calendar. There's also the,
Yeah, but we'll do one at a time.
that's the point of consent agenda. They all get taken at once unless somebody asks for it to be.
What
written.
you have to ask for changes, so if there's changes to the.
Right, if somebody wants, no, just at consent agenda, if somebody wants to pull something off of it and have a conversation about it, that can be done now,
Yeah,
but with
that's what-
barring that, yeah,
That's what I meant.
oh, okay.
No, I see no changes. And everybody got a copy of the 2025, which is the right date, annual report that Pip signed, the letter. It was a very nice letter, by the way. Nice little paragraph by him at the end. Okay, so now, roll call vote on this.
Do we have a motion?
Not yet. I'm
Okay.
asking for one now.
Okay,
Nick,
To approve the consent agenda.
first by Nick, second by Betsy.
okay. And then it doesn't have to be roll call, it can be a voice vote.
All the ayes?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Okay, now we've got council member comments of things not on our agenda. Please keep your comments brief. Remembering that this is just a time that we want to perhaps look at future agenda items or bring community events to our attention. Anybody have comments? Betsy.
I would like to address the trash problem in the plaza and the dumpster.
The Verndale Plaza.
The Gurnville Plaza.
Okay.
There's a gentleman, a local gentleman, Luke Hamilton,
Mhm.
who is going to park his, I don't know what the schedule is going to be yet. He's going to park his trailer there, like Kerry used to do on Saturday, on the weekends, and haul off whatever people dump in it.
Oh, okay, great.
Susie Kerr at Smart Pizza is collecting donations for that.
Okay,
I have given, I hope others will as well. And you could just drop it off at the pizzeria,
thank you.
and it will keep you updated on schedule. Hopefully he'll get 3 pizzas as well.
He's a good guy.
He is a good guy.
So that's nice. Any other comments? Sure. Carrie.
I just wanted to mention that this past Saturday was an all MAC countywide meeting, and several of us were there. And I just want to remind everyone, it went really well. And if just a reminder of how great it is to reach out to other MACs in our county and see how they operate, what they're doing, what we can learn from them, what they want to learn from this MAC, and just a reminder to stay connected.
We have it, it's on the agenda for us to
Actually discuss it?
Yeah.
Okay.
at the end. Thank you.
That's a little preview then.
Yes,
It is a
yes, thank you. Thank you for being there. Anybody else? Nick?
There's going to be an evacuation drill for Rio Nito and Hacienda. Sorry, everybody else, you're not in this one. On April 25th. So again, it's just Hacienda and Rio Nito. It's organized by the Department of Emergency Management. And they are asking residents of Hacienda and Rio Nito to check your mail, physical snail mail. They're going to be sending out postcards with QR codes on them. You'll use that QR code to sign up for a specific SoCo alert. So those who are already signed up for SoCo alert will not receive the alerts about this drill. And if you sign up for this drill, you won't be signed up for normal SoCo. So check your mail and sign up for that if you are interested. And on April 25th, you will hear high-low sirens coming through your neighborhood. That's to simulate an emergency where the whole area needs to evacuate immediately. And the rendezvous point will be at Sunset Beach parking lot on that day.
Do they have a time of day that
We can't just.
No, there's some discussion.
Sorry.
I'll tell you later.
Morning, in the morning, bright and early.
Any other comments? Council members? Okay, moving to public comments on matters not listed on the agenda. Yes, sir.
If you could just move closer, if you're
Sure.
6 feet from
Can
this
someone-
camera, then online people can hear you.
Problem.
Yeah,
I
okay.
can wheel.
Okay, thank you.
You let me know when I'm close.
Yeah, right about there is good.
Perfect, thank you.
I know I don't have much time. My name is Colin James Mitchell Brodeur. I'm a resident on Old River Road. On March 2nd, 2026 AD at 11:34 PM, a catastrophic failure of public safety occurred on the side of the road in Guerneville, California, United States. I, Colin James Mitchell Brodeur, was the recipient of a head-on hit-and-run collision with an over 2-ton vehicle traveling at over 50 miles per hour while being forced to walk in a dangerous condition of public property due to the absence of sidewalks and adequate lighting. Where my crash with the suspected Toyota Tacoma truck occurred on River Road west of Bonita Ave. Despite over 10 days of active investigation in the presence of pervasive taxpayer-funded surveillance, the perpetrator remains unidentified. This incident serves as empirical evidence that existing public safety expenditures lack any utility and value at all. I hereby move that this advisory council formally recommend to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors the following immediate actions: execution of a real-time utility audit, immediate termination of non-utility expenditures, reclamation and reallocation of funds that do not prove beneficial to the public. The government as an entity needs to choose whether they serve the people if by providing tangible real-world service, or if they persist in acting as fraudulent and dangerous. That's all I have. Colin James Mitchell Brodeur. I'd like to submit this to the public record
Sure.
if I can. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for being here.
Counselors, I think you're doing a great job and I want to help. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you get better every day.
your day.
Anybody else in the room comments? Or matters not on the agenda? Anybody online, Tracy?
We have one hand raised online. Bryn, please unmute to speak. You have 2 minutes.
Hi there. I don't need 2 minutes. I just wanted to ask, I wanted to join the meeting in person, but I didn't see the location for it until today. Like, it wasn't posted on the website. Is the location usually where you guys are right now for these meetings?
I can answer that. I can answer that. The location is listed on the agenda. So it's the same place where you found the link for this as the meeting location. They are generally at this location, which is 16390 Main Street in Guerneville.
Anything else? Tracy, anybody else on?
No, I'm not seeing anyone else with their hand raised online. Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, we did county updates, so I'm happy to say we're at our main topic, which is Conservation Sonoma, and John Mack will be presenting on the plan.
Well, thank you. It's very nice to be here tonight. My name is John Mack. I'm the division manager from the Sonoma for the Natural Resources Division. And so we do a bunch of things out of there. A lot of it is related to public and project environmental review. Also, we are the main lead on the aggregate resource mining program. So we collect and regulate the quarry operations in the county. We do stormwater management, groundwater, liaison management, a bunch of other kinds of things like that. And this is one of the projects that we have in front of us. So what is a habitat conservation plan or natural community conservation plan? Well, I like to say, like, this is a topic, this legally and scientifically is if you want to get into the weeds with this, the weeds are deep and wide, and if you really want to get down into the lots of details with it. And there is a lot of detail that goes into these. But fundamentally, it's actually quite a simple concept. There are endangered species in the county that are federally and state regulated. And to interact with them, you usually need to get a permit from a whole bunch of agencies typically. So fundamentally, the HCP is a permit. That's the legal thing that goes over. It's a big permit. It's a long permit. It's a permit with a 30 to 50 year life. So it's a big, long permit. Underneath the permit is this plan for how to evaluate how the species are going to get impacted by development, and then how you're going to do things to offset that impact, as well as help the species recover. So in a lot of ways, it's a very simple thing. It's a permit with a long-term plan underneath it. So we've been engaged with this process for a number of years. This was initiated by members of the Board of Supervisors back in 2019, just before the pandemic hit. We got started and we're rolling. We got a grant and then as lots of things, it got delayed probably 2 years through the course of the pandemic, where we would be today otherwise. But here we are today. So I'm going to cover a couple things, just basically what Federal Endangered Species Act, California Endangered Species Act, the basics of the HCP process and what sort of goes into the plan. And then hopefully leave lots of time for questions, and feel free to ask those as I sort of go along. So in terms of the federal government, there's 2 agencies that we deal with. It has to do with salmon. We deal with the Department of Commerce and the National Oceanic Administration, and in particular, the National Marine Fisheries Service. And they're the agency, the federal agency, that if you want to interact with salmon in the streams around here, that's the entity that we deal with. And then on the other side, there's other species where it's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is the lead federal agency. And so California tiger salamander, red-legged frog, things like that. Northern spotted owl, which is a thing that happens up in this part of the world county. We deal with that federal agency. So there's 2. It's already gotten complicated because we don't have just one entity we have to talk to 2 different ones depending on what it is. Basically, the Endangered Species Act says you can't kill an endangered species, intentionally or unintentionally. You can't take it to hunt it, and also you can't take it accidentally or incidentally is the term when you're doing development. And things like that. And it prohibits that. And then there is a way though, if you have a development project or you're going to be interacting with that species, they have what's called an incidental take permit. And there can be individual permits, and the county gets those regularly right now for all of our bridge infrastructure projects that have salmon associated with them or are near northern spotted owl occurrences. We're getting incidental take permits from these federal agencies. Those permits take 12, 24, 36 months to negotiate, very expensive. And so on. So you can get those kinds of permits individually for projects. The HCP is in a sense an umbrella for lots of projects over a long period of time. But legally, it's the same permit as you would get. So that's the federal side. Then we basically have repeated on the state side. So we have the California Endangered Species Act, which lists the same species and different species. Provides a comparable set of protections over them, but not exactly. And so the agency there that we're dealing with is the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, CDFW. Under the state act, there's the same sort of prohibition against taking the species and so on. So in that regard, it's very similar. And then the state has a similar incidental take permit process if you're going to be doing a project that could interact with that species as the federal goes. So that's the super slide of the legal framework, but just think of it as you aren't allowed to kill these things. If you're going to do something, develop something where you have to get a permit. And there's a federal permit and a state permit that covers that. So then what's the HCP? Well, the HCP is a thing that's the federal side, the HCP, and it's under that same incidental take permit law. It says that you can develop a plan for a larger scale activity that will protect the species, offset any impact, and allow you to do what you want to do, even though you may or may not actually take the species with it. So that's the federal side. That plan has a lot of moving pieces, parts, and this is where it starts getting very detailed in building these things. But think of it this way: the plan has geography, has the area that it covers. It has to have what species, because it doesn't cover every species, and it doesn't cover even every endangered or threatened species. It's certain species. You have to decide how long the permit's going to be for, how long does it last? So is it 30 years, is it 50 years? Typically, the idea is to make these as long as possible. Then you have to evaluate what activities are you going to cover in the plan. And so think of activities, you can think of them in sort of two boxes. Think of the public side, public activities, and private activities. So on the public side, think of things like replacing culverts on salmon streams, replacing bridges on salmon streams, cleaning ditches in the Santa Rosa Plain where there's California tiger settlement. Those are all public projects. Anything like that, those are activities that plan could cover. On the private side, the activity tends to be more on development, building things. So building a subdivision, building housing, building anything that, for that matter, that is in a place or in a way that interacts with that species, where you could take it. And so you can cover a private project, and you can cover public projects. And so we're casting a pretty broad net in terms of activities. So for example, one of the things we're doing is we're going to look at basically we're going to assume we're going to replace or maintain every bridge in the county that crosses the salmon stream over the next 50 years. And then we're going to quantify about how much impact that would be. And then the plan would then cover those activities down the way. Similarly, you look at the current general plans for the county or the other cities that are participants in this plan, and I'll get that in a second. if you have a urban growth boundary that goes out to a certain place and a general plan says we're gonna put housing there. And that housing interacts with the species that could be there. You can then extend coverage to that activity under the terms of the permit by analyzing the amount of impact and then replacing that or offsetting that. Basically. So, and then there's a bunch of other things. There's monitoring plans, adaptive management plans. There's a funding strategy, how do you pay for it? Can you pay for it? Is it economically achievable? And various other long-term management and things like that. And so there's all those kinds of elements, and that's really where you start getting way down into the weeds with it. So that's the federal piece, that's the HCP. Then there's what's called the NCCP, the Natural Communities Conservation Plan, and that's the state companion to the federal plan. And remember, we have the two different laws. We have state endangered species, federal endangered species, federal plan, and state plan. And then they tend to be written as one plan with the dual names. So trying to write one plan satisfies both. And the NCCP is a little bit broader. And then as an ecologist, and my mind a little bit better in that it looks at landscapes. And it doesn't just look at species, but it looks at landscapes and it looks at communities. So it would consider things like, should we be protecting, or what's the impacts to oak woodlands, or what's the impacts to redwood, what's the impacts to grassland, or what's the impact? You can identify these sensitive community types, and in addition to the species, you can protect communities that the species live in. And it's a somewhat broader piece. And it also has, instead of just offsetting the impact, mitigating for it, it also says you have to mitigate, plus you have to do something to help the species get better on top of that impact. And so the state plan is, in a sense, it's a more environmentally protected, or it definitely, and it has some deeper requirements than federal. The other things that are on the state side that the federal side doesn't have is we have to establish what's called a planning agreement with the state agency, with CDFW. There's a mandatory public participation component. So there will be, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a second, there's a public advisory committee that will be set up that will have voting members and also is open to all dependents for anyone. There's an independent scientific review panel that has to be set up, and that process has to play out. There'll be an implementing agreement when we get to the end of it, where we have a plan, we're ready to put the permit, get a permit, we have to have an agreement for how we're going to implement it. And then CDFW has to make certain findings that the plan does what it's supposed to do under state law. And the key piece about the plan, in a sense, is it's a permit. So who are the permittees? Well, the county is going to be a permittee, but we also have 4 cities who have signed on as potential co-permittees. So we have the city of Petaluma, Cotati, Santa Rosa, and Windsor, all are in this with the county. And so the co-permittees, the people who get the permit, once we get the permit says what we can do and not do. It says these are the impacts that can be covered, and this is the mitigation or activities you have to do and keep ahead of the impacts. And if you do that, I don't have to go to the CDFW or US Fish and Wildlife Service and talk to them about a particular project, because the project was already baked in and analyzed into the plan. So the real powerful piece about this is it gives control back local to us locally. We're in control because we said these are the activities, we analyzed them, we have this much mitigation, so we can cover the impacts from that and offset that. And so then when the project comes in the door, the public project or private project, we can go to that applicant and say, do you want to be covered by the plan? And if they say yes, then they pay their fee and they don't have to get those. Go through 2, 3, 4 years of permitting. So the idea here is that there's, for good development, the development that we want, and things like that, this actually makes it easier to get to that point. So it makes it easier to build a bridge, makes it easier to get housing, where the general plans say you're supposed to get it, because we've already said, this is where it's gonna go, this is where the impact is, and we're gonna do something over here to offset that. And then we can extend coverage, and then we have no other, and then the applicant can just move on and get their permits and build their project. And they're not caught in a really, long cycle of permitting. And so that's what this sort of slide is sort of saying, like, we get protection, once the permit's issued, then the control comes down to the implementing permittees, which would be the county and these other 4 cities. So where are we at in the process? Well, frankly, not as far along as I would like. According to this, we're basically somewhere in the second box. So we're getting, and this is largely while the county has been providing in-kind match and staff time to this process. The bulk of the work we hired consultants to help us do a lot of the legwork, and so and that's being funded by the federal government, by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They had a granting program, and we just finished our first grant last fall, and we're waiting on our second one. As you can imagine, things are slower than they used to be with getting grants and getting those kinds of things right now. And so we actually thought we would have this back in December. We're sitting in March, and we were told that it could come soon, but there's no guarantee. So we're waiting on our next big grant of $1 million+ to really kick off into the next phase, but we're well into the first phase. We have draft chapters, lots of technical documents written. We have a signed planning agreement. We have an outreach plan. We have a public advisory process ready to start. We're ready to start that process. We're just waiting for the funding to come in to give us the resources to do it. Once we get through that sort of development phase, then it's called a draft plan or a draft administrative plan. It's published for comment, and then you have the joy of taking it through the formal process of going through California CEQA review, NEPA review under the federal process, tribal consultation, formal tribal consultation, although we've been interacting with the tribes all along, but there's a whole formal public process that will happen at the end, when we have basically a plan that we think is largely built and implementable. And then after you go through all of that, then the agencies actually issue the permit. They formally issue your permit, it gets signed just like any other permit. And then you can actually get implementing, like you can actually implement the plan and start rolling. As I mentioned, the key benefits are local control. You get control over extending coverage, and you don't have to go case by case. You get a lot of you get a very top-down planned approach to species conservation, instead of this sort of fragmented project by project mitigation where that's sort of here and there. You actually look at the whole picture of the landscape of that species and those landscapes and get a sense of really what would it take to keep it as it is and improve it over that. And then obviously it will really streamline permitting. So use permit review, any other permitting review, the plan becomes the overarching key. We have some list of something like 20 species that we're considering. We're looking at the salmon mostly for just public projects. We're looking the Santa Rosa Plain species, for those of you familiar with that area. There's the tiger salamander, that's sort of the charismatic faunal species there. The 4 federally listed flowers that are in the plains, that's a focus of it. And then there's a number of other species like red-legged frog, northwestern pond turtle, pallet bat, and so on, that are on the list, burrowing owl. These species were selected out of a big list of several hundred listed species, because these are the species that come up during permits. These are the ones that, when you're trying to do something in the county, you encounter these species and the issues with them over and over and over again. And so that's the list of species that we primarily. In terms of I mentioned the public advisory process. There will be a formal committee with members with an open meeting that will have a chance to review things, vote on things. That meeting is open to anybody. In addition to the actual members of the committee, we have a working list of people who are interested in that. But once we get the next round of funding and formally kick that off, that'll be an open process to request to be part of that. And then I sort of mentioned the progress to date. Here and there, we've identified who's going to be in the plan. We spent almost a year working with all of the municipalities in the county, as well as other agencies who wanted to be a potential co-permittee. We decided the geography of the plan is going to do the whole county, excluding the coastal zone and the baylands. So we're basically not going to be in saltwater probably, other than maybe for the salt marsh harvest mouse in Petaluma. We got a signed planning agreement that was over a year of negotiation with CDFW. We've done public outreach and engagement. We've done a lot of technical work in the background. And we're ready to convene the science panel when we get to our next round of funding. And that's really the main thing we're just waiting on right now. So we have a project website that's active, and we're branded as Conservation Sonoma is the name of the project. And this is sort of, I put stuff in here because I'll share the presentation with you, Debbie, and so people can access this if they want to review anything. The main thing is we're trying to keep the basic pieces going out just with some staff time right now, but we're just waiting for our next round of funding so we can bring our consultant back online and get it going. So that's my thumbnail sketch of that.
Thank you, John. Any council member comments, questions?
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's you.
When you talk about mitigating, are you talking about the developer or private person having to fix something somewhere else to get permission to hurt something where he's developing?
That's mitigation at a project scale. That's what it would typically, well, it could be mitigation on site or off site. It depends on the project. But yeah, basically you have a project, it's going to do something and then you're going to do something else to offset that.
And will the offset happen within the county or will it happen anywhere in California?
Everything would be in the county.
Okay.
In fact, probably in some respects, it would be within certain regions of the county. So for example, the Santa Rosa Plain with the tiger salamander, you're not going to do tiger salamander mitigation in Cazadero. It's just not part of it. It's got to be close to where the salamander lives.
And is it your job, your organization's job to police that, to monitor?
Yeah, so there will be an organization that will have to take that on. Usually in most other places in California where these plans have been put in place, and there's quite a few of these in place elsewhere. We're not first out of the gate on this. Usually there's a joint powers authority that's formed. That is the implementing agency. They track, in a sense, the credits and the debits. They buy the property, they do the mitigation, they monitor compliance, that it's achieving its performance standard. They keep track that the amount of impact the plan is covering is less than the amount of mitigation that's been put on the ground. So the mitigation has to stay ahead of the impact, so to speak. But yeah, usually that's a JPA is to do that. But that we haven't quite got there yet in terms of this plan, whether we'll do that or it's possible that the county could take it on. But no, we haven't really made decisions about it yet.
That was a question I had as well, so thank you. Nick?
Are there any particular lands that are being eyed right now for conservation?
There's a lot of land in the Santa Rosa Plain that's already been looked at over the years, because there's been a number of strategies that have been prepared over the years there for how to recover the salamander. But there's not an actual, as far as like actual parcel numbers and owners, no, that stuff hasn't been researched. But there's definitely areas where we're like, yeah, this looks like a good area to acquire land from willing sellers and build reserves or build habitat. So.
I mean,
Yeah, could you explain a little bit more about the role of the scientific advisors panel?
Yeah, so this is unique to the state law, the NCCP requirement. It's a true independent panel. So basically, the plan developers can recommend names. Ultimately, they're selected by CDFW. They have the chair. There's usually some field excursions where you take them out and show them the area of the plan. You give them technical documents and background information, and then they go back and convene and then produce a report that they give back to the agencies and to the plan preparers saying, we think this is what it would take, or we think these are the issues that the plan faces.
So are they weighing in on specific mitigation? Or are they just there to help create the plan?
They're there to help create the plan. They're not weighing in on well, probably not particularly any particular property, probably. But they're definitely weighing in on the plan and the scientific issues that the plan is facing. So what are the uncertainties with the, like how to recover that species and things like that?
And will they be part of deciding what species are actually on your final list?
They can make recommendations to that regard. Yeah, they have a pretty broad mandate in what they can consider and not consider. Once that they are set up and running, the plan, like the plan permittees, the plan preparers have very little control over that. Like they truly are an independent panel, really only beholden to CDFW ultimately.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I have a question. When you were talking about the permits for these are often issued for 30 to 50 years. Is your organization looking at basically how climate change might impact making those decisions regarding habitats, species migration, and how that might be changing? Because I'm thinking in my head 50 years ago, might we be looking at things much differently than we are now? And I have a concern about that.
Yeah, that's our next question. The answer is yes to all that. Yes, you have to consider the climate change and try and make those projections. Yes, you have to account for uncertainties. Ultimately, like even though it's a 50-year permit, if say the plan got into year 25 and something starts to fail, like it's failing in some way, shape, or form, there are ways that the agencies who issue the permits, there's sort of like reopener ways that they can look at that.
so there's ways to amend the plan.
Yeah, plans they are amended. It's just as hard to amend them as it is to build them, because you have to go through all the same steps to amend it. But yeah, I would say right now, like if you had done one of these back in the 90s, 50-year plan in the 90s, I think you would have been much more confident that climate would be stable over the planning term than I would be today.
Right.
But so yeah, I think those are all issues that will get addressed, and we'll have to face. The resource agencies will be looking hard at that to say, well, are your assumptions reasonable? Are they valid? Are they protective enough? Kinds of things. So it remains to be seen, how it all shakes out.
Do you look also in development projects for permit use and how resources? I was first thinking about habitats, right? But then if you're talking about resources that people need, if you're talking about housing developments and such, all of that seems like a very vast scope. I'm just wanting to make sure that.
That one's a little bit easier because we take these plans don't change local land use planning at all.
I see.
So we basically take the general plans as given. And I've heard that there are times where some plans have sort of bumped up against a general plan that's proposing to do something that would make it impossible to implement the plan. And I've heard that can come up sometimes, and then you might have to look at changing the general plan because you have an unimplementable recovery in a sense. I don't know that that's going to be an issue here or not, really, we haven't gotten there, but yeah, we take like the county's current general plan or Santa Rosa just adopted a new one as the starting point. Say, okay, that plan says they're gonna build here, 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 and here, and here. Okay, that's an impact, then how do we to address that? So.
You mentioned that one of the benefits of an HCP like this is that it returns control to the county government. Does that mean that the county is in charge of enforcing and monitoring its own permit that it has been given?
Yeah, so say, I don't know, just as an example, I'm gonna build a housing development in the Santa Rosa Plain. And I'm gonna impact California Tiger Salamander. The plan analyzed that development. Said it was this big, and then the plan said, we're gonna have to do this, and this. To offset that development. And then that plan gets adopted and implemented and we get the permit. Once we have the permit during the use permit process, when we get to this, like the secret questions that say, what are the impacts to endangered and threatened species? If it's one of the species that we kept included in the plan and we analyzed and we that activity in that project, then we can say that project is already permitted. It has a permit under the terms of the HCP or FCCP. And then that's done. That stuff is done. And then over on the side, the JPA or the implementing agency is implementing the requirements, that are gonna make sure that extending that coverage is allowed.
I guess what I'm asking though is who is, if the point of this is to kind of speed permitting by removing CDFW and Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Wildlife and NIMS from the picture, who ensures that the county is sticking to the requirements that they
so they're still monitoring, those agencies are still monitoring the permit that they did issue, which is the HCP. So they're monitoring compliance with that. We have annual reports, we're reporting back to them on our compliance with the plan, our progress on the plan. So yeah, they are enforcing the permit that they issued to us, and that we're implementing that permit in accordance with its terms and conditions. Yeah, so they still retain, and if, for example, if we didn't do that, then they would say you're in violation of your permit, and they could enforce, they could tell us to stop, they could revoke, because they have any number of all those types of abilities. When I say local control is on any given project, if that's covered in the plan and we can extend coverage to it for that project, that applicant doesn't have to go to CDFW separately to get a permit. Mm-hmm. That's where I meant the local control is.
Any other council questions? This will be the last one.
Okay, sorry. Will any of the land that is conserved be available for public use?
It could, it depends on the species, on the needs of the species. So it's been the case in other plans where sometimes the land gets part of the park system. So where public interaction with that land doesn't affect what you're trying to do with that particular species, then yes, it can. But really the species is going to be driving that and the needs of the species.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience who would like to ask? Yes, Terry, can you come up so that we can hear?
Yeah, Terry Gustowski, Casabella resident. So, you were talking about.
You can just talk to Al and Al.
Oh, yeah, okay. So you were talking about, mostly incorporated cities, but what part, and then you said not the, coast, but like, what part of really West County are you looking at? And is there any way to add to that list of, critters? Because one of the issues we have in my little neighborhood is we have a lot of erosion on our East Austin Creek because it's so powerful in the winter. And there's loss of habitat there, but the incidental take permits, certainly for the county, but if I wanted to do anything, are so prohibitive. You know, we can't get anything done, so, I mean, I just wonder, you know, how much of, you know, West County is gonna be part of it.
Gentlemen, what we do is allow all the questions and then you can answer, please. Any other comments, questions, Dustin?
I have several, you said 4 of the 9 cities in Sonoma County are involved. The other 5 cities are not involved, why? We have green belts that were established years ago so that we don't end up like San Jose where it's one development after another after another. Are those green belts being maintained and used as an ability to protect endangered species, both plants and animals? And does that policy still exist? Because there's not been a whole lot of talk about it. In neighborhoods, a lot of us are doing fire mitigation projects. And some of them involve things like drainage ditches going into creeks, et cetera, to create safe zones around homes and neighborhoods to make sure fires don't crawl up canyons to get to houses. Do we need permits in order to do the fire mitigation work in those areas before we actually start our work? Also, does the Sheep House Creek Timber Harvest Plan out in West County, does that impact it? Can that be impacted by what you're doing? Because obviously this is a huge forest and it's a watershed, and therefore it would have an awful lot of species in that watershed and in that timber harvest plan that would be impacted. Do they require one of your permits in order to do their timber harvest plan? Because it's getting close now and it's been a thought project for a long time. Is it possible that your department is the kind of thing that can help stop it?
Thank you, Vestus. Any other, but just, can you get up here? Can someone help?
Okay, thank you. So, I guess my question about managing, the cascading risk to the local economy if, say, the county decides over in Edenville, they want to put in a new sanitation facility and all of a sudden there's a leak, something, they wipe out the steelhead population. There's a gigantic lawsuit comes against the county. Now the county itself is saying, well, we're gonna cover you under our blanket permit. Does not the liability now fall on the county instead of the state and the federal government if I were to go directly to them? To issue the permit. So I'm wondering, how do we mitigate that risk locally to some catastrophic lawsuit that could impact the local economy?
Yes. Not, if you could move up front.
Yeah.
Let's look at the owl.
Okay, first one, say that I really support landscape scale conservation, and I think we have done a beautiful job in Sonoma County. I don't know if people are aware, but I forget the name of the document that Agriculture and Open Space District produced a few years ago, which really identifies the different habitats we have here in the county and lays a framework. And also lists the partners that we work with. So I just think that we have done and are doing a beautiful job of landscape scale conservation here. I think from my perspective, personally, as an advocate for Lower Green Valley Creek coho salmon critical habitat. This is an endangered keystone species in a very specific area. And I am concerned that with the HCP and the CPP, I have the, abbreviations wrong, but I'm concerned that we will remove the traditional focus for severely endangered, critically endangered species. We have evidence that site-specific conservation works to help protect the habitat and to help provide the groundwork for restoring these species. So I am concerned because we have problems with our general plan regarding, again, Lower Green Valley and in more general, West County, federally and state endangered coho salmon habitat. And it's in a really gray area. I have to finish real quick, and it has to do with industrial use on these salmon bearing creeks. And as regards to climate change, one thing that we may want to think about moving forward is what refugia we may have here in the county, what we may have had in the past on the millennial timescale, and look at specific places as well as in overall.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
Hello,
Hi.
Harry Clark, and I'm a resident of Forestville, and I have a general concern about the apparent conflict between an incidental take permit that applies to the county that enables the county to manage the issuance of permits in and expedite, I think, that's part of the role here, the expediting of permits in these very critical habitats that we just heard a little bit about. So Green Valley Creek is one of them, and I'm wondering if the program, the Conservation Sonoma, which I find a kind of ironic title for a program that is really, I think, developed to expedite permitting. I'm just wondering if there's a way that that program can incorporate these critical habitats and exclude them in some special way by establishing, conservation districts of some sort that would make them require some sort of special process. And the final thing I want to say is that I do have some concerns about local control. This presumes that we have funding for county staff who can actually oversee and manage the implementation of a program like this. I see use permits already that don't seem to obtain, to be managed and monitored adequately. And so I have big concerns about the county taking on more responsibility in that day.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Anybody online?
No hands raised online.
John, you can respond to those many questions. Those you can respond to, perhaps there are some you can't, and that's all right.
Yeah, let's see, I'm trying to go back to.
Me too.
So, the community separators are still in place. That was a voter initiative. So those are all still out there on the landscape and deriving the general planning of all the people, all the cities and counties that do that. So that's, as far as I know, that's still there. And actually, that's one of the things, frankly, that's on the Santa Rosa Plain. That's probably one of the few things, this is my personal opinion, that why we still have the salamander curve is because those lands haven't been, they've been able to be intensively developed. And so they're still out there to be able to be managed and conserved. So, yeah, let me think. I'll just jump around. Funding, the plan, it has to fund itself. So by both the fees it's charging the users of the plan, the things that you extend coverage to, they're paying fees into the plan. And also the plan, by having these plans, it opens up huge swaths of other federal and state funding to acquire land and do all sorts of other things. So there's, my understanding, generally these plans are funded by sort of grants based, like a large influx of grants, especially for large scale land acquisition. And then the plan has to pay for itself and pay for the staff that it would take to implement them, which typically, I don't know, what I've seen in the other counties of our side, like Yolo and Placer, that have these already in place. You're talking somewhere between 10 and 20 staff to each logistically support this work, plus probably a small army. West County impacts, the species that we're looking at right now, that here in West County, the most are the salmon species and northern spotted owl. So that, those would be the species probably that in terms of this part of the county, that you would interact with the most. Right now, we've been talking is we're planning on extending coverage to private activities so far. So we're looking at public projects, so bridge, roads, culverts, all that kind of thing. That's where we feel the pain point the most at the county scale. And so we're not planning, we don't have plans to, the timber harvesting is its own animal under the timber harvest rules of the state and how far it is there. We're not planning to move into timber harvest as part of as an activity at this point. Like I said, none of this is set in stone, I'm telling you. So I don't expect that would be, that's a whole other hyper regulated area in its own right. And so we don't see a churn at the county's level in terms of timber, major and minor timber harvest permitting that we do, like in my office. It's a really low number. We get a couple a year of those. So from our perspective, it doesn't come out cost benefit wise to
as I understand it, that topic will be covered at the March 26th Coast MAC meeting.
That's being explored. We're not completely.
I was
sure.
told today it was.
Yeah, but we're not from
Because the
county
county's been
perspective.
contacted now.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, keep going.
Let's
There was
see.
the thing about why some cities and not others, I think.
Oh, so we did an outreach to all of the cities plus other governmental agencies to, we reached out and said, do you want to be a co-permittee? Do you want to participate in the plan development process? We met with a lot of them, not all of them, some of them weren't even interested in meeting. And then as over the course of about a year, like I said, Petaluma joined in, Patati, not Roanoke Park. They felt like they had mostly built out to their rural boundaries and they were thinking they wouldn't. Santa Rosa, their growth boundaries overlap all over the place into critical habitat for CTS. So that's a big issue for them. And then Windsor has lots of issues with flowers. If they're in terms of their growth boundaries. So those are the ones that said they wanted to. You can join later. It's possible to come into a plan later, but it's a process to get in, just like stuff later as it is. You can also drop out, but yeah, that's sort of where that's at. So we cast a broad net. We wanted to get the idea is what's been found elsewhere in the state is the broader your group, the better, in a sense. It makes it harder because you have more people in the room to argue, but at the same time, you can also get more of the landscape of the county and the political authority together. So we feel pretty good about the group that we have, especially from my perspective. Santa Rosa was a key in making this work, especially for CTS and the San Jose. I don't think you could have pulled off a real plan that would work.
I think the other topic was the fire. Fire mitigation.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a whole other topic. We don't, at the county, we don't issue permits for, that's CAL FIRE's vegetation treatment program. That's another agency does a lot of that permitting. So at this point, no, we weren't including that in particular, or particularly project work. I will say the other thing is, like with Green Valley Creek and the Coho that live there, I mean, this plan doesn't really change anything. Except that we'll look at that area holistically and say what's being done there, what should be done there. It's gonna basically go, what we're gonna be looking at is like every county bridge that goes up the Atascadero or up Green Valley, every culvert that's there that could be replaced in the next 50 years. Like, we're gonna be looking at all of that and saying, if we were to replace every bridge and every culvert up in that watershed in 50 years, what would be the impacts from that? And then we're gonna offset those impacts as part of this plan, doing those same kinds of projects, all those. You know, putting out woody debris, doing all that kind of work that you would typically do to try and restore.
Anything else?
I think that was most of them, I don't know, I just apologize for.
No, you did real.
That was a good thing.
Maybe I'm confused. Did, Terry, was your question answered?
Yeah.
It was? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And feel free to reach, you've got, our information, you can, if you email the info on the website, it will get to me, and so if you have, we're always happy to talk about this further, so if you want to reach out and get more information, there.
I'm encouraged that you're doing this. Thank you.
I'll just say personally, I've been an ecologist and a botanist for 32 years, you know, trying to save the world sort of. And this is the most exciting thing this is the most chance of doing really, really good work on the ground. So I'm really excited about it. I hear all of your concerns about development.
Yeah.
And I feel them also, but I think the experience in other places where these plans are on the ground is it changes the whole landscape of how we do it for the better, Jeff. So.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Debbie, I think I should have probably let you during county update.
Yes, but I know we've skipped over that, but the second ad hoc is talking about community engagement, so I thought I would plug it in there.
Perfect, thank you. All right, ad hocs. Updates, who will give the update for the land use? Ad hoc.
I didn't know Joe wasn't that.
Okay, well, we do have the report, and I think everybody read the report, but if there's anything you want to add. That's it.
Well, for the people who don't know, I can certainly summarize that.
That'd be perfect.
Thanks to Debbie and Joe and Betsy, particularly who was the only ad hoc member that could make the meeting. There's been several meetings with county folks putting out all the questions that we had gotten about the hotel development and changes that people were seeing and concerns. And as a result of those meetings, Debbie has put together a pretty comprehensive Q&A that will be available, that I think certainly for me resolved some of the questions that I had, and certainly explained how certain things have happened over a very long period of time. So if you want access to that, Debbie, you should let people know how they can.
I guess my question to the MAC and the ad hoc is this document is an ad hoc report out. Would you like something that's formatted more as an FAQ that just because would that be more digestible by folks? If we created some, I mean, we certainly wouldn't necessarily have to share, all of the meetings, just to make it a smaller document that could be shared at tabling. What's that?
Like a one pager?
Yeah, like a 1-page or a 2-page back to back. If you'd like me to try to
I think that's a really good idea for tabling.
For tabling.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really helpful. Especially the Q&A sort of thing, but I think we need to have something to hand out when we go to events.
Yes.
A little more.
That's not just a report from a meeting, because this was specifically as an ad hoc report out, and people might not need all of that information.
Will it be available though on the website at some point?
We could get that at probably, up on the website. Why don't I create that and maybe share it out with the ad hoc.
I was
just
gonna
to
say,
make sure,
we won't dissolve the ad hoc right now. Let's get that finished.
Yeah, we'll
Is that
wanna,
okay?
yeah, we'll wanna look at the one pager, I think, before, and
Yeah, that's
that
what
need to be approved by the whole Matt, or
I think it's the content that's in here, so no, it's just reformatting it, and that way we can have it available, for the tabling that's coming up pretty soon, yeah.
I'd like to add two, if I could, that what I found interesting about our meetings with the county is that while the project is permitted, there are still steps that the developer needs to take in order to get building permits. So there's still places where we can ask questions and make sure that the process is, make sure that our concerns are addressed.
Good.
I have a question, that's it, I just, if you could clarify, if you know, when I had read 6 and 7, were my points of this most concern after what's recently happened with the water district. So it is, if I'm interpreting number 7 correctly, does that mean that there is going to be a review and
We can't get the answer to that question from PRMD. We have to get that answer to the question from Sonoma Water. And we talked about going, having them come or going to talk to them or figuring out how to get that question answered. And as far as Sweetwater, they've already done an analysis and decided that they can handle the increased use.
yes,
So
sewage and water needs, both of them?
Not sewer, no,
just water, that's
agencies,
water, I'm sorry.
Sweetwater Springs
Got it.
versus Sonoma Water,
Understood.
who is responsible for the treatment plant.
Got it.
And we had talked about bringing that question up about the sewer when Sonoma Water comes back to present to us. I don't know, were you here at the January meeting?
Yeah.
And so, they are going to come back and talk to us more about the, after effects after the spill, and
In
that'll be
future.
in a future MAC meeting. So we'll add that to our queries to them when they come.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for this, you guys. This really was helpful. So we'll look forward to the one pager.
If we have questions about it or comments from the public.
Sure.
So,
If you could come up here so the online folks can hear you.
yeah. So you guys are doing this to not necessarily to prevent it, because it can't be prevented at this point. But like, what can we do? I mean, what kind of pressure do you think this ad hoc and part of our group can do to mitigate some of the issues? And is there still any hope of stopping this project? Thank you.
Well, again, they will not be giving building permits unless some of these issues are addressed. So our job is to monitor the process as it goes on. Oh, and Debbie and I also learned when we met with PRMG that there will eventually, they're working on a web page process where we can actually monitor developments as they go along. It's not done yet. It's not completely built yet, but we'll keep track of when that's going to be available.
The idea for this ad hoc, Terry, was to educate ourselves about it and to put something together that could answer some questions for the public as well. Anything else?
There are no
Anybody else?
hands raised online.
Okay. So we'll move on to community engagement and outreach plan, which we have, I think, done a pretty good job of putting together the last couple of years. But it does need a review. And I feel like it warrants an ad hoc. Could give it a
I'll
small.
volunteer.
Thank you, Betsy. I knew you would. You helped put the first one together. So, Carrie, fabulous. Nick, great. I think that's all we need unless somebody else wants to be on it. It's really reviewing it, refreshing it, seeing you know, especially you two with new ideas and looking at it with new eyes.
And I think reinvigorating the tabling.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit too,
And our
absolutely.
elevator speech
Yeah,
that we can give to people, because most of the time when I talk to people, they don't know what I'm talking.
here we are, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
All of those are good points, by the way, and we do try to at least talk about those in the plan. As well, I think, you know, Debbie has some good ideas about, maybe you wanna mention Ruby, you know, our intern,
Well, yeah, well, we,
and looking at student engagement.
yes.
And
Ruby and I had a
participation.
lovely conversation about that.
She's amazing. Hi, Ruby.
Yes, so Ruby is our high school intern here through May. And we had our student MAC member last year and we received some input from her.
Yeah, that's great.
And so what I was hoping, one of the items that the community engagement outreach plan ad hoc could look at this year is in addition to revitalizing the tabling calendar, coming up with an elevator speech and looking at refining the student engagement piece. And that'll be a work in progress. I'm not looking for it to be perfected, but looking for what is the next step for
Yeah.
student engagement and how to engage with young people.
Yeah, so maybe Debbie, if you could get that feedback that we got to the ad hoc and the community plan that exists right now, I think that'd be a really good place to start.
Okay,
Yes.
and so is the ad hoc Betsy, Carrie, and Nick, or are you also on the ad hoc?
No, I'm not.
You're not.
Joe
Okay.
might want to be part of that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, so if there's room if
It's
somebody
okay if
else
one other
uses
person
to,
wants
but we
to, but
can.
we don't have to have it. Yes, Patty.
We have to make a motion.
No, the chair
Everyone
forms an
just-
ad hoc.
if
If
we
we
did-
make a motion, then it's a standing committee.
Let's not do
But I was
that.
just gonna say,
No.
it's really, really good that people volunteered for this. One thing, and this leads to our next topic that we learned last Saturday, was that the efforts that we may have made over the last couple of years were well advanced of many other MACs out there, and we were able to actually share ideas and help some other people just because we had really given some good thought to this and implementation, and it's just a critical issue for all the MACs. So thank you all for working on upgrading.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
your own stuff.
Okay, so,
And so,
your own
and
self.
so you formed it,
Yes,
and while we're on this topic. I just want to mention the 4 things that we do have on the calendar coming up so that you can email me if you would like to table at it so that we can start making sure that we have people there. And I can also send these details out with the times by email if I didn't already. And let me know when you respond whether you would like to be part of the setup or breakdown, or if you just want a table, because we do have a very heavy canopy.
Yeah.
And so
Very
sometimes that
essential.
needs.
Some of
Um,
us know.
So the
I
4
forget it
things that we
sometimes.
currently have on the calendar is
Yep.
April 4th, a new festival, the Community Kermes Family Festival in the Guerneville Plaza. And that's being put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and it's a family multicultural festival. Then the West County Fix-It Fair that we have tabled at for the past few years, and that's on May 2nd from 10 to 2. The Kermes Festival is from 3 to 7. And then Forestville Farmers Market begins June 2nd. It's every Tuesday plus the 4th of July between June 2nd to August 11th from 4:30 to 7:30. The nice thing about that one is that no canopy is needed because there's shade. And then I have down here with a question mark, is Rio Fest June 20th?
June 20th from 12 to 6.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I had it in my calendar, but then I thought, why do I have it in my calendar already? It's
Very-
too efficient.
So those are the ones that we have right now.
Great.
We do.
Debbie, are those on the calendar
Is it,
or the Google?
Labor Day.
They're on the Google,
Yeah.
yeah. Except Rio Fest is not on the Google, but I would put it on. And there's a link, if you hear of any events that you think would be good for the MAC to table at, there is a form that you can add things, and then people still just email me and I'll add their names to it.
Yeah. And by the way, the events are from whatever to whatever, but what we generally try to do is everybody does a shorter
Couple hours.
shift. So, yeah, a couple hours is a good amount of time for most of the things that we do, and it's appreciated.
And Forestville folks, they're pretty flexible with, letting them know that we'll be tabling at the farmer's market, like with pretty short notice, so.
I just show up out there.
I think so, I think if
So-
you're not vending,
Yeah,
it's not an issue,
Yeah.
and we're just giving information.
exactly. Okay. So let's talk about the,
On that note, would there be any interest in doing the Guerneville Farmers Market?
yes, there was for a while, but I think Joe had mentioned that he didn't feel like it maybe was
He didn't,
getting much value from it, but
It's not well intended.
Yeah.
is
Unfortunately.
that right? Yeah.
It's very sporadic.
You could try it and see, but
Joe has said that he's willing to do it if they move it to the plaza.
okay, it hasn't been moved to the
Yeah,
park
yeah.
as far as I know, but
Although that was, it's kind of been talked about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that does sound like it.
but if anybody wants to table if you wanna try it,
Yeah,
we don't all have to approve it, so if you're willing to go and check it out again and see what's going on there, let me know and we'll just put it on the calendar so that we're tracking it, yeah.
Has anybody recommended to them that they move to the plaza?
I
That
think
seems like-
Joe has.
Okay. Seems
I
like
think
we could write them up.
We talked to the chamber about intervening.
It's a good idea. Yes,
Is there going to be an announcement about our next meeting, the opportunity for the Saturday? For April?
we're getting to that.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. First, we're gonna cover the All-Mac meeting that you very nicely brought up earlier. I think Tony, you were there, Carrie was there, I was there, Patty and Betsy were there, so we had a good number of
And
us
Debbie.
there. Yes, Debbie was there. I met council members, but yes, Debbie and Linda Hopkins was there. And a lot of county folks who did a great job. So comment was made by Patty, which I concur. It was very clear as soon as I sat down at the table with the people from the other areas that they were doing things that we've been doing for the past few years and needed some guidance and help and needed to look at documents to give them a step up, and we are doing that. Any other comments, Betsy?
People were very admiring of our name badges.
Yes. Betsy and I both had our name.
Like, where'd you get that? How did you have that?
Yes.
We need a budget.
I'm glad people.
Well, I have a comment, especially for the communications group, maybe I'll give this to Nick. They handed out a handbook of what it is that advisory councils and boards do, and that sort of thing, and there might actually be something in here, I haven't read it yet, that would be useful on communications. If anybody wants to have this, I just would like to get it back to them.
Yeah.
More
Sending you a message if you could bring some for the rest of the team.
Yeah,
Is
I
it-
think we had it at one point, didn't
We had ones that I
This isn't a new
printed,
one.
Yeah.
but they made a few revisions.
Okay.
And
this
then
is
they
the real
bound
real
it,
one.
so
And
that's
it's
the
lots-
real one,
lots
so
of
I
printing.
will make sure, I will
Yeah, it's
actually
really
get a
well put together.
supply to have here. So that at the next meeting you can get them
Okay.
and people can, yeah.
Thank you, that would be great.
And I can also send you the PDF of the
Oh,
new one.
please, yeah.
You want that?
Yeah.
It is not.
Very useful. Yeah,
They may be putting it on.
I love PDF, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be useful.
yeah.
Tony, any,
Made it halfway through it. So far, it's helpful.
it's helpful.
There is some vague stuff there. But my big take was, the elevator speech, I when I talk to people, they don't know who I am.
Mm.
And they don't really know if I can help them or how to help them, and I feel like there'd be if there was a way that I could give them that quick,
Mhm.
like I can help
Paragraph.
in this, you know, action.
Mhm.
And then the other thing was, maybe like, our supervisor sets goals for us, maybe we have a powwow once a year about what we're gonna do for the year. Just things that we can work on throughout the year, that aligns with the supervisors.
That's a great idea.
You know, what the supervisor wants for the community. Cause you know, like I can go to the community and say, hey, what's your deal? But it would be nice if it was a two-way.
Which is supposed to be.
Yeah, right. I have no idea what my supervisor wants for my community. Yeah, I think it'd be good to establish that.
I just want to share that your chair and vice chair are keeping that in mind. Because when we're setting agendas, the Board of Supervisors publishes, and they changed the name of it this year, I'm gonna use the old name because I don't remember the new name, a calendar of significant events that are coming up. And so they have a grid, it's at the end of every Board of Supervisors agenda. So you can pull up last Tuesday's agenda, and it's the very last thing at the end, and it shows sort of some of the like topics that Supervisor Hopkins flagged for upcoming meetings. Those are on there, and so sometimes we'll look at that and say, well, this is coming up on a Board of Supervisors agenda, and Supervisor Hopkins would like to bring it to the MAC before it goes to the full Board of Supervisors. So Vicky and Patty are keeping that in mind and getting that information.
Right, but I think there's a way we could probably share that out in a better way. I agree.
Yes, but I just wanted you to know that
Yeah.
is happening to an extent,
Yeah.
but we can fine tune that.
And yeah, I'm not complaining. Like you said, I feel like decades ahead of the rest of the team that's out there, and we are fortunate to have the support we do from our supervisor.
Yes, for sure. And yeah, that was something we heard a lot of too, that people didn't feel like they had that, so.
Yeah, I heard.
Carrie, did you wanna?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for letting us know, Debbie, because there were two things I kind of thought when I came away was hearing how other people in their January meetings created an agenda and to kind of synchronize some of those topics so that you can be more proactive rather than catching it at the end, like, oh, we didn't know that was happening. So thank you for that. And the other one, I just wanted to share that in kind of the mixer section, talking to other areas was really helpful. For example, I was talking to the representative from Geyserville, and because of Linda's talk in Sonoma for Clean Power, I was thinking like, oh, their new power that they're gonna be wanting to get the high from the geysers. And so I just want to say, how are the people in your area feeling about this? And so it was a really nice way for me as a MAC person to start getting an idea of something larger than our Lower Russian River MAC, and kind of get more of a feeling from our county in general. So there's a lot of opportunity. I just wanted to share that's just one example that I thought was really nice.
I think it's nice that you were able to connect with them that way on something that was very topical for them.
Right.
Right, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else about the comment? All right,
There might be public comment on the OMAD.
oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Dang, I don't think of you as the public anymore, sorry. Ruby, you're public for this.
You can stand there, yeah,
Right by the
yeah, then
podium.
you can put your
Hi.
papers down.
So, okay, I had the pleasure of attending the LMAC meeting, and I just did a lot of observing on how the MACs are connecting with youth, and I just have some, that's my final project for the internship program that I'm doing with the county, and so I just had some like baseline ideas of things that can be done a little differently in order to increase the connection between the MACs and the youth population. I think number one is branching out on social media to Instagram as well as just Facebook, because that's where a lot of the younger population
a lot of the younger population gets their news specifically like events, like local events. That's where we like, that's where those things happen. And especially like partnering with local schools to get MAC events out there is a really great way to do that. I think another thing is connecting MAC issues to things we youth are passionate about and like issues like just in the news and everywhere that like we are dealing with. Like figuring out ways, I'm gonna go into detail a lot more about that, probably at another public comment thing, but figuring out ways to connect like a road or like whatever it is that or like the conservation project that you were just talking about with like our fears as like a global youth population about climate change and how our involvement in these MAC meetings can actually help make tangible local change in our community. Another thing is some form of youth advisory board, where like you have a list of youth who they can use this as like college application padding because like mutual beneficial relationships, and but you guys send out like you send out like Google Sheets or something that youth can actually where youth can share their opinion directly from the community to you guys, and so then you can have a breadth of youth perspective in order to better make decisions.
Love it, Ruby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ruby's gonna have to look at our communication
Yes.
plan for sure.
She has suggested to me that we actually table at events that
I love
youth
that.
are at.
Yes.
Well, and the scary thing is our student population.
It's shrinking.
Yeah.
We have to take
So-
advantage of the population that we have. Okay, thank you, public, Ruby. Anybody else in the public that would like to comment? Anybody online that would like to comment?
No one online.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, before we adjourn, I'm gonna remind people that it would be an April 9th meeting, but we aren't having a regular MAC meeting on April 9th. We're having a meeting on April 18th. The Council of Governments convening at the Monterey Community Center. And remind me of the timing of that, Debbie?
1 to 4.
1 to 4, okay, on the 18th of April. That will, in essence, take place, the place of the April 9th meeting. So our next regular meeting will be May 13th, 2026. And with that, meeting's adjourned.
Still a little bit of light outside.
There sure is, Patty. Yeah. Next time. I'll be able to drive the meeting.